Tonight, our Facing Race team takes us inside one Native family's nightmare when their son disappeared. They say that police would not take a report.
PJ Randhawa shares never-before-seen video that shows how the family's own investigation led them to their son's body and face-to-face with his killers.
And a note for our audience, this story does include details that are disturbing, and we include them because they are central to the family's story, but we want you to watch with caution.
911.
I need the police here right now at Lake Isabella. They're taking us to Derrick's body. I'm really scared.
A family's plea for help.
Now, get cops out here now, please, now, before somebody's killed again.
Help that would come too late.
God damn it!
Those who knew and loved 27-year-old Derrick Wily are still stunned at his brutal murder.
He was just a funny kid.
Derrick's foster mom, May Lynn, raised Derrick and his brother Taylor.
He's the only one of my kids that ever asked me to be his mom. And I still remember the look on his face when he asked me to be his mom. And I touched his cheek. I said, yeah, let's work on that.
Derrick struggled with addiction and was no stranger to local police. He would routinely disappear at times, but when his family hadn't heard from him in weeks, they decided to go to police and file a missing persons report. Police initially did not take the report, saying there wasn't enough information and Derrick was an adult.
But I wasn't surprised by it because I know it's a systemic issue for our people.
Statistics show Native men make up 75% of all Indigenous homicide victims.
Our men, they're missing a murder too. It seems like they keep being just left out of the conversation.
They're always talked about in the deficit. It's also asking, well, were they drinking? Are they an alcoholic? Are they a drug user?
Abigail Echohawk is with the Washington State Task Force for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and People.
It is a common story for police departments to not take the missing persons reports of Native people.
That's why our people have become experts at finding our own.
With no police support, that's exactly what Derrick's family did. They launched their own search.
This is the house right here.
His brother Taylor started by tracking down the last people who saw Derrick before he disappeared.
What about you, man? You all right?
Get up. I'm straight.
What's going on?
His cousins, Jordan and Jero Affo.
Come on, my name is Derrick Wy, Affo.
Seen here on police body camera video during an unrelated disturbance call weeks prior.
Everything just happened so fast.
Taylor went to their home, hoping to find clues on where his brother was. Maybe they knew something important. Instead, he says he got a confession about the worst possible outcome.
I just asked him, I was like, where do you want me to go? I was like, where is he? And then he gripped my hand and he said, I killed Derrick. I killed him. And as everything just kind of went numb.
Shaken, Taylor went to the Shelton Police Department for help, where he gave them this statement detailing Jero's confession.
He's like, I just choked him. I said, he's for sure not alive. No, he's not alive, man. He's not alive. I know he's not alive. I was sitting here looking at the eyes of somebody who just took my brother's life,
Derrick's family say they begged Shelton PD for help in recovering his body and arresting his confessed killer. But that help was slow to come. Shelton police say it's because the crime scene wasn't in their jurisdiction.
Once we got that information that they were going there, we reached out to Mason County Sheriff's Office and said, hey, this is the information that we have. We immediately notified them. But it's their jurisdiction.
On their own again, the family continued their search to find their brother by convincing Jordan Affo to drive them to Derrick. Jordan took the family to Lake Isabella State Park.
Jordan gets out and he had his head down and I was like, let's go find him.
Where he led them to Derrick's dismembered remains.
How could you do this? What is wrong with you?
Taylor's grief at this moment is captured on audio recorded by the family.
I can't believe this.
I know this stuff.
I can't see Derrick, man.
That's why I said we should wait for the cop. We butchered him.
The family's cries reflect a sobering, sad reality for many Indigenous families.
I know that that is pain and that has been amplified as a result of the lack of resources, of the way that her family was dismissed, of the way that she has continued to struggle to get justice for her son.
We tried to get somebody to come out here with us.
I wish you guys would have waited for law enforcement to get there before we did this.
But then it might not would have happened.
Got 5 officers and 1 canine. That'll be us tracking it.
Roughly 2 hours after Giroux's confession.
I can't see the body. He's somewhere underneath these logs. They hit him in the little, water area.
Body camera video shows police finally arriving.
Well, we're not really looking or waiting for the crime lab to get here, but he's in pieces out here.
Jordan and Giroux Affo were arrested that night.
Because she's praying up and he's praying down, right?
These days, Maylin's grief has a physical form.
Morning prayers for our missing and murdered is one of the stone sculptures that we just had installed.
Stone carvings she created while grieving Derrick now occupy a very public space in downtown Seattle.
You know, that rock was born 15 million years ago. And that rock knew that my son was going to be murdered. And it knew it was going to be part of my healing process. And it knew it was going to be a voice for our people.
Spin it this way. I want the woman's face facing me.
Her voice is now a part of the state task force for missing and murdered Indigenous women and people.
That way the Thunderbird goes through the trees.
Pushing for more police accountability so no other family has to suffer like hers.
And it's going to take the people to uphold justice. The people to say, no, we want accountability and we want it now.
For Facing Race, I'm PJ Randhawa.
The Washington State Patrol's Missing and Unidentified Persons Unit operates a 24/7 hotline to help law enforcement agencies and families locate missing persons. That number, along with an email address, are here on the screen.
757 days. That's how long Maylin Foster has been waiting for justice for her son, Derrick Wily. Today, that wait ended. Members of the Squaxin Island tribe joined Foster in a prayer circle in front of the Mason County Courthouse ahead of the sentencing hearing for Jordan and Giroux Affo. Both pleaded guilty to killing and dismembering Wily back in November of 2020. Tribe members took a moment to remember one of their own before the hearing and mourn the victim.
We have a responsibility as Indigenous people to continue to sing our songs, to gather and to do all of those things, and he was that. He was a young warrior. And he'll never be able to experience that or to fulfill what it was that he was here to do.
Court is now in session.
After the prayer circle was completed, Wily's family and tribe members made their way into the courtroom. According to court documents, Giroux choked Wily to death and enlisted the help of his brother Jordan to dispose of the remains at a scrapyard near Isabella Lake in Shelton. Giroux pleaded guilty to 1 count of second-degree murder, and Jordan pleaded guilty to 1 count of criminal assistance in the first degree and unlawful disposal of human remains. Before the judge delivered the sentence, he gave Wily's family a chance to speak.
Because when I first wake up, I don't remember he's dead. Then as I begin to get grounded in my first moments of consciousness, I remember he's dead. They killed Derrick. They killed my baby boy.
Foster says the sentencing brings some level of closure and a chance to move forward.
I feel like the judge heard us today. I feel like the system worked today. And while I understand the system doesn't always work, not just for our people or for people of color, but all people, right? Today, it worked.
Ms. Foster went on to say that she hopes this experience will bring some level of change to Mason County when it comes to criminal justice. However, for this holiday season, she says that she plans on being present and showing up with love and laughter, because that's what Derrick would do. From Mason County, Lionel Donovan, King 5.
Mason County, 2 brothers are headed to prison after pleading guilty to the murder of their cousin. Derrick Wily's remains were found near Shelton in 2020. According to court documents, the 27-year-old Squaxin Island tribal member had been choked to death and then dismembered. One of the brothers had previously gotten into a fight with Wily and felt Wily was being disrespectful. Yesterday, a judge ruled that Giroux Affo will spend 20 years behind bars for murder in the second degree, and Jordan Affo will spend 5 years in prison for rendering criminal assistance for helping to dispose of the body. Wily's mother was in court for the sentencing and spoke before the judge, and Maylin Foster tells Fox 13 News, "I feel like the judge heard us today, but not all families are as strong as we are. We must address systemic gaps so victims can become survivors, as well as advocates and activists for change, and our streets can be safe."
Hey guys, welcome back. Another episode of Greenlit Gang TV. I appreciate you guys checking out the channel. Hope all is well. We're going to be going to Shelton, Washington, in Washington State. We're going to be covering the murder of a Native American man. And I want to make sure I kind of get this right first. A lot of us have heard about, in the news, missing and endangered Native American women, right? That when they go missing, a lot of times on reservations, and because there's kind of a blurred line between law enforcement's rights to be out there, because it's a federally recognized tribe and a treaty and and if you don't live in an area that has a lot of, basically a lot of Native American tribes, maybe you don't understand the laws, but basically they don't fully govern themselves, but they don't have the same laws as you and I do, right? And a lot of times what happens, and what you've seen with the missing, murdered indigenous women, is these cases go unsolved. They are one of the most exploited groups of people, and they don't go solved. You hear a lot about the women, okay? And then, unfortunately, there's a lot of stereotypes. So they say, well, the Native American, the Indian was probably drinking, or she was on drugs, or well, that doesn't matter. If she got murdered or is missing, they have to investigate. But again, I'm not even always blaming the police, because there's blurred lines of jurisdictions and things of that nature. But another huge one is murdered Native American men. And in this particular area that we're going to be going to, 75% of the homicides, violent crime against the Native Americans in this particular group and in this region, are against men. We're going to be talking about the murder of Derrick, and I hope I say this right, Wily, a 27-year-old man who was beloved by his family, had his struggles, had his issues, came from a very rough upbringing, was in multiple foster homes until he found the right one. You see that in the interviews with his foster mom, who said that basically Derrick asked her to be his mom. He was a member of the Squaxin Island tribe, a local indigenous tribe to the area. Shelton's kind of in Mason County, Washington. And what happens is he goes missing, all right? And his family immediately, and it was basically shown that law enforcement put this on the back burner, that the detective on the particular case that was assigned to his case had never had any sort of training, had never had any experience. Now, the police department comes out and says that doesn't matter. They can't do anything about the fact that it's the guy's first case, but it's just kind of the optics of it, right? That the family had to fight so hard to get people to listen, and when I get to the part about who actually committed this crime, I think you guys will be very surprised. It's a very sad case that it just shows the level of human depravity, in my opinion. So we're going to read a little bit from an article. 911 calls captured the desperate pleas of Taylor Christ and his family on November 23rd, 2020. His brother, Derrick Wily, 27 years old, had been missing for weeks. The last person to see Wily alive had just confessed a shocking secret to the family. Quote, "I need the police here right now at Lake Isabella," the 911 caller said. "They are taking us to Derrick's body. I'm really scared," end quote. Despite their urgent appeal, the Wily family said police help was slow to come. Quote, "Now get cops out here now before somebody kills again," Derrick Wily's sister-in-law told 911 dispatchers. "God damn it," end quote. Before the night was over, Wily's family would find his dismembered remains and come face to face with his killer. So, Derrick Wily, like I said, foster kid, had been in and out of multiple foster homes, had his struggles with drugs and alcohol. But you see his picture, right? Big guy, big kid, in shape, holding the fish. He's cut, strong, was an athlete, big smile, And you could just tell he was a loved guy. We've all had struggles, right? We've all had struggles with addiction. We've all had struggles with everything. Not everybody, but a vast majority of us, okay? And I can relate to that because I do remember going into the depths of addiction, and people just, they love it on you. They love you, but a lot of times it's kind of got to be from a distance because you're going through what you're going through. And it sounds like Derrick Wily is facing some of the same things. Continuing reading from this article. Those who knew and loved Wily are still stunned at his brutal murder. Quote, "He was just a funny kid and just sweet," said Maylin Foster, Derrick Wily's foster mother. Foster raised both Wily and his brother Crease from the age of 11. Quote, "He's the only one of my kids that ever asked me to be his mom. Not very many parents get to experience that, to have your kids actually choose you." And I thought that was really cool. She makes a point, right? When you have a baby, you have a baby. And this 11-year-old picked her to be his mother. From all accounts, Derrick Wily had a difficult childhood in several foster homes. Maylin Foster said Wily had many of the same troubles other Native American children have when growing up in the foster care system. She says, quote, "Just thinking about violence was okay," Foster said. Quote, "Drug and alcohol problems really all comes down to a lack of being okay with being a native because of not having a positive Indian identity." This is a real thing, man. This is a real thing that goes back generations for these Native American families. It goes back to when our government went in, removed Native American families, sent the kids off to like boarding schools to be indoctrinated with, some would say, like the white man's beliefs, right? Cut their hair, get rid of their history, get rid of their beliefs. Brothers and sisters couldn't talk to each other. Cousins couldn't talk to each other. They were punished, given different names. Now, obviously, that didn't happen to Derrick Wily, but the remnants of that still loom. People are still affected by it. When you kind of think about it, right, we put them on a reservation. Yeah, it's easy to say, well, yeah, they get money every month, or they get discounts on this, or they get that. But it's like we literally took something that wasn't ours, put them on a reservation or a designated area, and said, okay, this is yours. We're going to be really nice to you and let you hunt and fish year-round. We're going to let you have cheap housing. We're going to let you guys kind of govern yourselves. Hey, sorry again for, killing you and taking your kids from you, and we're trying to, basically what we did was try to erase their history and erase who they were as people. And that still looms. All right. And I'm not someone who's a big victim, like play the victim or poor me all the time. At some point, you've got to look yourself in the mirror as a man or a woman and decide what you're going to do with your life, and that you can't change certain things. And from all accounts, Derrick Wily was trying to do that. He struggled with drugs and alcohol, but he was trying to make his way. All right. He was trying to make his way. The article continues. But as he grew up, Wily excelled as an athlete and played football. And immediately you could tell that's what he looks like in the pictures. He looks like a football player. He was in and out of trouble with law enforcement, but remained close to family and young relatives. Quote, "When somebody said he went missing, I knew something was up. Something bad happened," his brother Christ said in early November 2020 when his family hadn't heard from Derrick in several weeks. Then they decided to go to the police to file a missing persons report. According to dispatch logs, now get this, the Mason County Sheriff's Office initially did not take the report, saying there wasn't enough information and Derrick Wily was an adult, which is true. When you are an adult, it is not illegal to basically disappear. You can be married with kids and a job, and if I decide to wake up tomorrow and, sell my car and go backpacking across the Appalachian Trail and live off the land, I can do that and never talk to anybody again, right? I'm just throwing out examples. I don't know why I'd go to the Appalachian Trail, and I would never do that. To be honest with you, I hate hiking. So there's that. But anyway. So we talked about Mason County Sheriff's Office. Did I take the report? Now, Derrick Wily's foster mom, Maylin Foster, I think it's a little confusing because her last name is Foster. She, quote, said this, "I wasn't surprised by it because I know it's a systemic issue for our people." Statistics show Native men make up 75% of all indigenous homicide victims. That is a crazy number. The women's the one you hear about for good reason. For good reason. Women are a lot more, I don't want to say helpless, but they're women. They're smaller. They're not as strong. If a man attacks, the man's going to win the fight, right? They're taken advantage of more. But 75% of all indigenous homicide victims are male. Malin Foster goes on to say, quote, "Are men, they're missing and murdered too. It seems like they keep being just left out of the conversation." She continues, "They're always talked about in the deficit," said Abigail Echohawk with the Washington State Task Force for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and People. Quote, "It's also asking, well, were they drinking?" Right? This is what we're talking about, stereotypes. Are they an alcoholic? Are they a drug user? It is a common story for police departments to not take the missing persons reports of Native people. That's why our people have become experts at finding our own, Malin Foster said. Derrick Wyly's foster mother. With no police report, the article reads, that's exactly what Derrick Wyly's family did. They launched their own search. His brother Christ started by tracking down the last people who saw Derrick Wily before he disappeared, his cousins, Jordan and Jero Afo. Christ went to the Afo home in Shelton, Washington, hoping to find clues where his brother was. Maybe they knew something important. Instead, the article reads, he said he got a confession about the worst possible outcome. Quote, Christ says, "I just asked Jero. I was like, where is he?" Then Jero gripped my hand and he said, "I killed Derrick. I killed him. Everything just kind of went numb. Everything just kind of went cold." Shaken, Christ went to the Shelton Police Department for help. King 5 obtained the videotaped statement Christ gave him. Shelton police detectives detailing Jero Afu's confession. Man. And this is where people get frustrated. Quote, he's like, "I just choked him," Christ told the detectives. He goes on to say, "I said, he's for sure not alive?" Jero said, "Oh, he's not alive, man. He's not alive. I know he's not alive. I was sitting there looking at the eyes of somebody who just took my brother's life." And you do hear that about, if you just watch any interviews with maybe ex-military or ex-murderers or people that have actually seen people die, and basically like the lights go off, right? The lights go off. Derrick Wyly's family said they begged Shelton police for help in recovering his body and arresting his confessed killer. But that help was slow to come. Quote, "I said, you guys need to get over there," his brother Christ recalled, saying as he left the police station, "now." Shelton police did not jump into action. Wyly's brother Christ had, as Derrick Wyly's brother Christ had hoped. Shelton Police Chief Carol Beeson said jurisdiction issues held them back. "We reached out to the Mason County Sheriff's Office and said, hey, this is the information we have," end quote, Beeson said. Now, this is what we're kind of getting about with the preview. This is information that we have, Carol Beeson said. Now, like I said, this is what we're talking about with jurisdiction issues. And some of it's true, but I also feel like police departments will just use this, right? They just want to say, oh, it's jurisdiction. Shelton Police Chief Carol Beeson, she goes, "Well, we reached out to Mason County Sheriff's Office, and here's the information we got." And we immediately notified them. But then she ends it with, "But it's their jurisdiction," right? Which is basically just like, but hey, I said all this, but remember, this is their jurisdiction. The article continues to go on. Derrick Wyly's family was shocked to later learn the Shelton detective that took Derrick Wily brother's statement and would eventually take lead on Derrick Wyly's case had no prior homicide training. Carol Beeson, Chief of Police, Shelton Police Department, quote, said, "It's not required. It's simply considered specialized training, advanced training, but it's not required to do an investigation. I got to tell you, they, in my opinion, they did a good job on this investigation." The article continues. On their own again, and into their own nightmare, the family continued their search to find their brother by convincing Jordan Afo to drive them to the body of Derrick Wily. Now, I want you guys to picture that. I want you to picture for a sec. You basically know who did it, okay? His brother Christ goes over, gets the confession from the cousin. He takes it to the police department, who then says, well, we turned it over to the other one who has the jurisdiction. Nothing's been done. It said it was like 757 days for all this to come together. That blows my mind that you can have that. And I just couldn't imagine if my brother was killed. I have a sister. If my sister was killed and my cousin says, I did it, and I go to my local police department or sheriff's office and they say, okay, we're going to get this to the right people. Like, what? Please comment down below and tell me what you think about that. I really want you guys' opinion. Continuing. On their own again, the family continued their search to find their brother by convincing Jordan Foe to drive them to Derrick Wily. Jordan's behavior was erratic and he seemed intoxicated. Yet Wiley's family was desperate for answers. So can you imagine you're in a vehicle, you're riding out with this guy who you know brutally murdered your family member. He's obviously intoxicated, drugs or alcohol or a combination of both, okay? And he's talking reckless, he's talking crazy, and he's driving. But your sheer desperation to just want to get his body, want to know what happened, drives you. And some of these stories are pretty inspirational, man. I don't love reading this because it's sad, but I love seeing determination. I love seeing what people are willing to do to get what they want, right? To get what they want. Jordan's behavior was erratic and he seemed intoxicated, yet Wiley's family was desperate for answers. Jordan took the family to Lake Isabella State Park and led them to a fence bordering a nearby junkyard. Quote, when we got there, Jordan just turned around and stopped, said Casey Brown, Derrick Wily's oldest brother. Continuing the quote, he was standing on this plank that was going across the swamp, and he said, his head is right there. It's buried in the swamp. The family's grief at this moment is captured on audio recorded by the family. They recorded this. Quote, how could you do this? What is wrong with you? I can't believe this. Just stop. I can't see Derrick, man. I can't see him. They butchered him. The family's cries reflect a sobering, sad reality for many indigenous families. Quote, I know that is pain that has been amplified as a result of the lack of resources, of the way that the family was dismissed, and the way that the Foster family and Maylin Foster has continued to struggle to get justice for her son, Echo Hawk said. No mother deserves that. No family deserves that. And yet it is the common experience of Native people in this state and in this country, end quote. Continuing. Now face to face with Derrick Wily's killer and standing next to 8 garbage bags filled with his remains. 8 garbage bags. They butchered that poor guy. The family once again called the police for help. Once again called the police for help. We tried to get somebody to come out here with us. Bobby Brown, Derrick Wily's sister-in-law, can be heard telling a 911 dispatcher, quote, I wish you guys would have waited for law enforcement to get there before you did this, replied the dispatcher. It's like, could you imagine? Could you imagine? It's like, wait, we've been waiting. We've been begging. Not just waiting, we've been begging. Quote, but then it might not have been. It might not have happened. Bobby Brown says back to the dispatcher. Roughly 2 hours after Jerome Afoe's confession to Christ, body camera video from Shelton Police shows officers finally arriving and relaying details about the crime scene to command staff. Quote, hey there, so the family took me to the spot, end quote. An officer can be heard saying on the police body camera video. He continues, I can't see the body. He's somewhere under these logs. Afoe hit him in the little water area on the back side of the junkyard. He continues, no, I'm not touching it. We're not really looking. We're waiting for the crime lab to get here. He's in pieces out here, end quote. Jordan and Jerome Afoe were arrested that night. Going to December 2022, the Afoe brothers pled guilty and accepted a plea deal for their roles in Derrick Wyly's murder. Police believe Giroux, 28, strangled Wily to death during an argument in the Afoe family garage. Jordan, 31, confessed to dismembering and dumping Derrick Wyly's remains after the fact. Now get this, okay? You want to hear about prison sentences, and certain states are like, Washington State's kind of like California, right? They're pretty lax on some of these laws. Giroux was sentenced to 20 years. He strangled his cousin to death and then helped his other cousin butcher him up and dismembered his body. 20 years in state prison. Jordan only got 5 years. People were outraged. These days, Foster's grief has a physical form. I'm talking about Maylin Foster, Derrick's mom. Foster and her son Christ are both accomplished Coast Salish carvers. Beautiful wood carvings. I don't know if you guys have ever seen Native American carvings and stuff like that, but they are amazing. I encourage you just to type in a simple Google search. Morning prayers for our missing and murdered is one of the stone sculptures that we just had installed. End quote. Maylin Foster said of 2 large stone carvings that now greet visitors at... I just want to read that part again. Foster said the sentencing allowed her an opportunity for closure and pointed to systemic issues in the justice system for victims like her. I feel like the judge heard us today. I feel like the system worked today. And while I feel like the system doesn't always work, not just for our people, but people of color, but all people today, it worked. She said Derrick was a member of the Squaxin Island tribe and a proud member of it at that. Members of the tribe were outside of the court as the judge announced the sentencing. One of the tribe members, Jamie Cruz, says, "We have a responsibility as Indigenous people to sing our songs and to gather. He was a young warrior, and he'll never be able to experience that or fulfill what he was here to do," end quote. And I love that about their culture. I don't know much about Native American culture, but I love that. Warrior and pride in being a man and that you provide for your family, and everybody plays a role, and I feel like that gets lost in society nowadays, and I just love that. They're proud people, and I like that. You should be proud of who you are and where you come from, not embarrassed. That's freaking cool that they stick together. Giroux, and probably we're wondering why this happened, right? We're going to get into, okay, why did they kill their cousin? Well, from all accounts and the little bit I could find out, it was about disrespect. Giroux says that Jordan never really dropped an incident that him and Derrick got into where Jordan really felt disrespected. The Shelton Police Department wrote in a police report, Jordan said that Giroux thought he had backed down from Derrick and that Derrick was being disrespectful. According to the court documents, Giroux, Jordan, and Willie were all at a gathering at their home when the murder took place. Jordan told police he had left his brother and cousin alone for a few minutes, and when he returned, Derrick Wily was dead. Giroux later admitted he had strangled his cousin. He then dismembered Derrick, and a few days later, Jordan took the remains in plastic bags to a scrapyard. And that just hurts to hear, right? A scrapyard. And then they lead him to the bodies, and yeah. He was reported missing 3 days before Thanksgiving of 2020. And took 757 days for it to all kind of come to an end. Over some disrespect, man. Over an argument. Derrick probably got the best of it, maybe in something physical, because Derrick's a cut up stud. Or something was said. And, man, it's crazy. It always happens. Every time I do these stories, I'm like, my God, over what? And that's the thing. It's like, wait, over what? He felt disrespected. He couldn't let it go. But, anyway, guys, yeah, love doing these stories. I will say this. I do track my views. I do track what works and what doesn't. But I still say this. I'm in my first year. A year will be in October. And I'm always going to stick to the stories I want to do. And it's not always about the views. It's not always about the numbers. It's about bringing you guys content that I enjoy. And I hope you guys enjoy it too. Until next time. Peace.